pornographic.
Well, I'm in Salt Lake City now. That's the Mormon temple behind me.
And young women, please understand that if you dress immodestly, you are magnifying this problem by becoming pornography.
They go to the temple along with our 11-year-old young women.
Jehovah, we promised Adam and Eve that we would visit them and give them further instructions. Come, let us go down.
We will go down, Elohim.
I hear their voices. They are coming.
See, you are naked.
Take some fig leaves and make you aprons. Father will see your nakedness. Quick, hide. Come, let us hide.
Brethren and sisters, put on your aprons.
The lust of your eyes. In our day, what does that expression mean? Movies, television programs, and video recordings that are both suggestive and lewd. Magazines and books that are obscene and pornographic. Don't see R-rated movies or vulgar videos or appreciate or participate in any entertainment that is immoral, suggestive, or pornographic. Don't listen to music
Travis Wayne Goodsall. Before we get to comment reply video for Stanford, Bill Maher had his new rules last night covering how the Oscars had a couple of people who are maliciously altering definitions of jobs, specifically concerning prostitutes, calling them sex workers now. This is an attempt to go into the next phase of corrupting English and thus corrupting our society with chaos and confusion and hatred, rather than telling the truth and sticking to definitions of established words. It is not complicated. The enemy loves to alter meanings of words, loves to use alternate words to divert away from the meaning of the intended word that everybody knows and understands. And this has been a problem of teenagers. Every single teenage generation seems to be involved in creation of new secret combination words for their generation, so that the older generation, especially their parents, don't understand them anymore. And in case you didn't know, gay, it meant happy. Had nothing to do with sexual identity or sexual practice, as it was before it became sexual identity. And so you see this kind of practice commonly, regularly, habitually, addictively used by psychologists. You'll learn that they've been altering their names for their titles, as well as their jobs, as well as for their education, and as well as for the facilities used for their work. They're now called treatment centers, for example, in the state of Utah. They're asylums. President Kennedy signed an order saying there are to be no asylums in the United States of America. And so the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints simply changed the name of their asylum. We're conforming and complying. No, you're not. No, you're not. It's still an asylum. You are still abusing people. Whoops, wrong file, wrong program. Because the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints loves to do this too. And before we get to the porn thing again, they do it with the name of the church. Thanks to Stanford, he had provided the documentation that Brigham Young knew he was the governor of the territory of Utah. And yet, the very next month, he has a meeting as governor in which it was decided that he was going to form the church into a corporation. And it was called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They had not incorporated it as that name. That was never the name of Joseph's church. Never incorporated. Brigham Young did not incorporate it when Joseph died. It was not until 1851 in February. The 4th and the 6th. And he put in the Articles of Incorporation that it was the state of Deseret, not the territory of Utah. And so when it was officially exposed as a territory, not a state of Deseret, they had apparently just transferred it into the territory of Utah. You can't do that. And so thus, when Brigham Young's church got shut down in 1887 with the Edmunds-Tucker Act, they point this out, and it's all dissolved. It had ceased to exist on the face of the earth. There is no more religion, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But the leaders lied to Mormons. Wilford Woodruff, Lorenzo Snow, Joseph Fielding Smith Sr., Heber J. Grant, all told Mormons we're still the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It didn't exist. The United States shut it all down. It was a criminal operation in combination with the Perpetual Immigration Fund, which was human and sex trafficking, both adults and children. And so Mormons never knew that they were no longer a religion. They're just religious-minded people, thinking that they've got a church, they've got the buildings back, and the United States is leaving them alone. Grover Cleveland pardoned them for polygamy only, not for the tithing crimes. And so Mormons thought, fine, we've been given our religious freedom again, except they continued the practice of polygamy. And so in the Reed Smoot hearings, never ended. Church has always been committing crimes, seditious crimes against the United States of America. And so Heber J. Grant, 1923, November 26th, files articles of incorporation as the corporation of the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But that church does not exist. It was dissolved. So the corporation is illegal because there is no church. The original Articles of Incorporation, from which this current administration has Articles of Incorporation, is all illegal. It's all fraudulent. But they've been deceiving the government, deceiving Mormons, deceiving the world that they are an organized religion. Nope. It's all illegitimate. And so when Nelson takes over in 2019, that's when Edward presented me with the change of the name, and then he went missing. I'm assuming he was either a fake, thinking he was going to own me, or he was murdered. I don't know. Where are you? But in those Articles of Incorporation in 2019, that was when Nelson made the change clear across the board. The Church of Jesus Christ. And the Articles of Incorporation title was changed to the name, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The same as Brigham Young had it, which the United States dissolved for their tithing crimes. And so you can see how this manipulation of name was used to deceive people with. As now the church claims to be a church, that's the title of the corporation, organized religion, ta-da, nope, all illegal. The fruit of the poisonous tree. Oops. Nobody's stepping up to stop them. And so, with porn, it's done the same thing. And Bill Maher has done his politically incorrect, and he talked about that. How this is a cancer in our society, demanding to alter words, alter word meanings, so that they can push an agenda which causes harm to the public at large. And he explains why you can't call a prostitute a sex worker, because now you're going to try to claim that you're going to try to legitimize sex work throughout the nation, and that therefore they can get tax benefits, government benefits, because that's what we saw with the creation since the 1990s of LGBTQIAPO+. They're trying it again. Now they're doing it with prostitution. And this is dangerous because prostitution is not the same across the board in the United States. You've got Asians, for example, who are being sex trafficked. They're told that, hey, you can go to America and you can be free. You know, you just have to pay the shipping price. And then you get to America, they put you to work in a massage parlor, giving happy ending massages as a sex worker, prostitute. But you're working for a pimp in this particular case. The guys who own you, for which you had to pay, and then pay off the debt, as they will demand that if you want to bring your family over, you're going to have to work it off to get them here, and so on and so forth. And so these women are stuck in bondage as sex slaves for the duration of their life to pay off this debt that is intentionally so high that it'll never be paid off, as the wages are low enough to keep them in the service for the rest of their lives. And if they die, then another family member has to step up and make up for it. Hey, you were brought here to America. She was supposed to pay off your debt. She's dead now. You now have to do it. And it's not a matter of, oh, okay, well, I don't want to do this anymore. Just take me back. No, you're dead. You have no choice. And so that's the more extreme example that is happening in America. Here in Utah, prostitution is illegal. It's supposed to be. And yet, there have been the practices of cruising state streets, in which you go cruising and you look for others who are also cruising, and then you hook up when you meet somebody driving by. And then you go off to an apartment or a hotel. I talked with one woman in the older singles ward who had a child, and so she couldn't become a member of the branch. And she was telling me how that's what she did down in Orem, was doing the cruising, and then when they hooked up, she took him to her apartment. And I'm going, oh my God, you didn't get a hotel, huh? Because now he knows where you live, which is dangerous in and of itself. And apparently she got pregnant one of those times. And then I asked, well, how much did he pay you? Huh? Well, he didn't pay me. Okay, well, so you're not a prostitute. By definition, there has to be a transfer of money or some kind of monetary exchange. That was news to her. She didn't know that. She assumed that prostitution was having sex. Oh my God. This church needs to stop their abuse. So much stupidity because of the miseducation of the religious leaders. And so technically she's just a slut. But then you have other women who try to be prostitutes, whether on their own, trying to make money to survive because they're homeless, or a John runs and operates them. Now this is also done in a different fashion, which is more common in Utah, because they change the name from prostitution to escort service. And escort services are able to bypass the laws of Utah and thus have a home right across the street from high schools here in Utah to recruit high school girls in Utah to be escorts. Escorts are a little different than prostitutes, because prostitutes is simply for sex only. Escort services are more like a dating service. Yeah, prostitution, dating, prostitution. Money exchange, well, under the conditions of sex. That's a social, cultural practice that apparently is not illegal. And my own mother is telling me this because of the indoctrination of the church. Is that, when a guy asks her on a date, it's free for her. He's paying for everything. And yet you get Mormon women who are told no sex. So the guy asks them out on a date, and they go on a date because it's free. They're getting a meal, they're getting gifts, they're getting activities and stuff that they normally wouldn't do. And then the guy expects sex. And the woman says no. And other times, a woman says yes. And other times, when a woman says no, she gets raped. And that's a big problem here in the state of Utah. Is when a woman says no, she ends up getting raped. And that is a high percentage in the state of Utah because of the church and its sexual abuse of Mormons. To miseducate people on sex ed is sexual abuse. To make orders going against sexual biology is sexual abuse. You are threatening people to commit sex crimes, to violate them. And so that's a whole deeper, darker level than the fire chief and the judge who just got busted for child sexual stuff, for which the judge yesterday I saw resigned from the bench. Dear God. And so technically we kind of have to go through all of his cases now and see if there's any connection to his criminal activities and the cases that came before his bench. A whole investigation is required now. I don't know if they're going to want to do that. Yadu. Right, Mark Shurtleff? You too. Don't think just because you got away with it that your cases aren't suspect. Especially that one in August 20th, 2008. That one needs to be re-reviewed. But we gotta unseal it first, don't we? And so, yeah, this is a big problem. And Mormons don't see it as a problem because they grew up in it. That's normal. This is the way it should be. Jesus approves of this. Jesus, after all, is a rape baby. By Daddy. It is just so awful. And Mormons don't see it as a problem because of the twisting of words and the twisting of definitions. Mormons don't see it. And so Mormons especially don't see the abomination of desolation that they are all involved in. Once you become a Mormon, you must begin the abomination of desolation. The abomination of desolation comes from the Jews when the Greeks took over the Jerusalem temple. The Greeks tore down the altar of the Jews and rebuilt a Greek altar, and thus began offering sacrifices on the Greek altar. But the Greeks also began the practice of prostitution in the temple. They'd already been doing it in their Greek temples. The Parthenon? Pantheon? One of those pronunciations was a well-known one. And so with the Maccabean revolt, they got their temple back. But the Jews called that takeover the abomination of desolation. So yeah, Christians kind of screwed that one up for the latter days, didn't they? And that's why Christians did not accept the scriptural records of the Jews that talked about Mary, the raped mother of Jesus, being a temple prostitute. The Jews are not writing literal history, but Constantine's first creed turned the Jewish scriptures into literal history, and therefore those scriptures were not accepted by Christians now because they don't want to defame the Holy Mother. See how they're changing words, changing meanings. And in this particular case, they're purposely rejecting scriptures because it doesn't fit their interpretation. And so this practice has gone long before psychologists who were brought over from Nazi Germany, who were doing it to the Jews, to now do it to Americans. And this is yet another fruit of their poison tree. It's Nazi Germany getting revenge on America. I mean, thanking their American liberators. Okay? Real simple stuff. And so the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is not Joseph's religion. The endowment that Mormons go through is not the endowment of Joseph Smith, which was just washing and anointings to become a Christ. Remember, Jewish, not Christian. It is Brigham Young who destroyed the altar of Joseph Smith's temple and put in his Christianized version of it and began doing the endowment ceremony rituals on the altar with bondage of both human, or both adult and child, slavery, and sex trafficking. Right there in the covenant paths. And Mormons don't see it. Mormon women think that they no longer have to obey their husband. Seriously? Seriously. Let's find the family proclamation for you. See if this is the case. Let's hope it's in this file. There it is. And we'll bring it up. We'll have to adjust the Microsoft window. I hope that it doesn't give me grief. All right. So we're looking for the specific one rather than reading it all for you. So there's mothers are primarily responsible for the nurturing of the children. That's why the church keeps telling Mormon women to stay home barefoot, pregnant, in the kitchen, doing try-on haul videos for Travis. I'm not seeing the men. You separated them, didn't you? God. So that's also another tactic to put what they don't want you to hear in another position so that it gets covered up with other wording around it. Husbands have preside. That's what I'm looking for here. By the husbands and wives and fathers will be accountable. Children are entitled to birth. See, when it says children are entitled to birth, they're talking about no abortion, no birth control, no contraception. That's what they're talking about there. Because Holland said every human are God embryos. God's an embryo. And so that's their justification for women who are raped to be forced to have the baby. And it's just awful what they're doing. And then they say within the bonds of matrimony. Well, a raped woman is not married. And so, therefore, she's a sinner. She's the one in the wrong as the victim of rape. This is how the church gets Mormons to think like this. And so, she should have said yes and married the guy who was raping her. It is just awful. And women think that because they changed the law of obedience in the temple, that it doesn't still mean this. I know it's in here. It's been read to us numerous times. Dear God. I'm going to have to turn off the camera and then go, oh, there it was the whole time. Dear God. Successful marriages, prayer, love, wholesome recreational activities, no porn, which we got to remind me to define that again for you, because I had to add that into my infamous picture. Fathers are to, oh my God, it was right there. Now, listen to the wording. By divine design. Fathers are to preside over their families. What does that mean, to preside? Well, the head of the church presides over the church. And he just sits there and does nothing while the women do all the work, right? Running the church, right? No! Everybody knows that when you're the presider, everybody obeys you. It has not changed, women. You got conned. And that was used as a diversion for when the law of chastity came up. Because that was changed also. Guess what, women? Polygamy. It's coming back. You're not obeying it, are you? Remember, section 132 says you have to obey or you will be destroyed. Like Brigham Young said that Joseph told Emma. Just so sick and wrong. Section 132 is a forged document that Brigham put in the year before he died and removed Joseph Smith's monogamy chapter section. It was section 101 in the 1835 Doctrine and Covenants, and Brigham Young got rid of it. And so he also put in section 131, which was by Joseph Smith, but if you go to the Joseph Smith papers and look at the original document, you'll go, wait a minute, that's not in section 131. Yep. He took out the part where he was talking to a Danite with his one wife that Joseph Smith knew of and said, your monogamous marriage will get you into the highest degree of the celestial kingdom. Gutted. Because Brigham Young wanted marriage to be polygamy to get you into the highest degree of the celestial kingdom. And so he purposely removed text that he disapproved of and only left in what fit his agenda. You know, what Christians did to the Jews. Exact same pattern. Okay, and so I've been telling you this forever. Porn. The church is obsessed with porn. They just had the Utah Porn Conference, which they kept pushing. They did Kieran, who was the speaker this year, and then I did the video on that, and then they still had that, his name ends in Black, so don't take me wrong when I say that black guy. It's the name Black, not the color of his skin, because he's white. I can't remember his first name though. And I can't call him Brother Black because he's of a different religion. He was brought in as a guest speaker, as a psychologist. And so I did the video on that guy too. And so yes, the church are back into the denialism that they're the cause of sexual abuse. As again, they're victim blaming people, victim blaming an idol, which is just an image of a woman. You know, we have technology now that idols can now speak to us. They can speak, they can hear, they can taste, they can smell, they can touch. That was never the case prior to movies. But it's still an idol. It's a digital image that is moving, a motion picture. But it's still an idol. It is still a form of art. And thus, graphy at the end of porn makes it art. And so therefore, it's not illegal. It's not a violation of the First Amendment. In fact, the First Amendment protects all forms of art, especially in the Constitution itself, that has art to be protected. And that it's supposed to be promoted. But when you get evangelicals, 1900, being denied, forcing evangelical interpretation of the Jewish Bible upon all public schools, they got upset. And they went on a full-on attack of America, using their religion, as they so called it, to demand that everybody who does not believe like them are wicked, that there are idols that cannot be touched, and there are idols that should be embraced. Prayer, church, words, etc. And so thus pornography was created by them. The Greeks never used porn and ography together. It was not a thing, because porn in and of itself is an art form, in a sense. And so porn comes from prostitute. Yeah, prostitute. Evangelicals also changed the meaning of prostitute, but that was already done by the Christian Constantine Church. Because when they created the Bible in the 400s, or prior to the 400s, plus or minus, they put in fornication. And so as a result, over time, the definition got altered to where Benson says that fornication is between a single man and a single woman. Not possible. Especially if there's no money involved. Because prostitution, as practiced by the Greeks, was a word in and of itself harmless and not sexual. Pro is before. Stitute is a carving in stone. There's the art. And so it's before a carving in stone. And so the temples, with the Greek practice of women being sacral prostitutes, getting paid for men to perform the creation ritual, because we have Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 2. They're supposed to breed. That's the whole purpose for mankind, is to have sex and reproduce humans. That is God's plan of happiness. Sex. Amazing, isn't it? And religion says it's bad. How did they botch that up? Well, it was something good and divine is now evil and of Lucifer. And yet Christianity thinks they're on God's side, huh? Well, you gotta follow God in order to be godly. You're following Lucifer. You're satanic, by definition. And Mormons don't get that from my videos. Jewish. And they get angry. No, prophets say we're Christian. We're Christian. You're wrong, Travis. Fake news. That's not in Scripture. You're lying. This is the damage of Christianity on the human brain. This is your brain. This is your brain on Mormonism. Any questions? Because drugs, religion is the opiate of the masses. Hilarious. But I had to explain it. And so the women, when they were not involved in the endowment ceremony of the creation, which Brigham Young did actually want something more along those lines, and created bikinis for the women because they didn't want to be naked. He had the design of a Salt Lake Temple so that he can be up in the upper shaft to be peeping on the endowment ceremony. And Mormons thought that that was inspiration for the air vent. And so if Mormons disagreed with Brigham, yeah, it wasn't an invention of the elevator shaft. That was for the gallows. Mormons do not understand. This is the knife. It still exists. They're going to murder you in a coming day if they win and get their kingdom back. You do not see the danger that is coming because of this brainwashing that they've done to you. Altering words, using different definitions or meanings for words, and removing things, but still keeping them in. This is all a trap, Mormons. You're not obeying the law of polygamy now, are you? Because you don't want to see it. But it's in there. My second ex knew. And yet you don't? You know, it's all about the pronouns. Gotta watch those pronouns. Okay, and so the women, when they were waiting for the next guy to worship in the temple, stayed outside to try to convince the guys to worship God. And thus they were before the statues on the pillars of the Parthenon or Pantheon. We gotta find out. It's just bugging me. Nope. It's not in that one either? What the hell? Did it not get labeled properly? Oh my god. Maybe I'm not, maybe it's neither Parthenon or Parth. Oh my god. Parthenon. Yeah, it's the Parthenon. Why do I not have it? I know I have it. I know those pictures. Need to pull them out for this video. Oh my God. It isn't the Parthenon. But sort of. You know, they're columns, but they'd have extra statues out and about also. It is not. Oh my God. Athena Parthenos. Let's see if I can find them talking about it. Pantheon. Let's try Pantheon. Oh my God. Nope, that's a different thing also. Yeah, I did get the wrong wording, so I do have it. It's not Athena, is it? Athena Temple. Nope, here it is. Acropolis. It's a temple of Athena. Yeah, because the columns are actually formed into goddesses, women. Oh my God, that was so stressful. And so the brothels, it should be listed under Acropolis. Put it in that file. No, it's labeled differently. I can't find it now because the file's too big. And so Brigham Young is the one who started this prostituting of Mormon women with Section 119, right after Joseph Smith is gone and out of the picture. He all of a sudden puts it out and says, this now is the law of tithing. So the 1835 Doctrine and Covenants with Joseph's law of tithing, let alone the Book of Mormon concerning tithing, let alone the Bible concerning tithing, all gone and replaced with Section 119. When this church talks about tithing, that's what they're referring to. They're not referring to Malachi. They're referring to their revision of Malachi with Section 119. Section 64, nope. Section 119 revises that. That's what Hinckley in his little clip says. You have to pay tithing. Yes, it's been called fire insurance, but there's no guarantee. You have to obey. You'll be burned if you don't pay. And so Nelson, likewise, tithing, pay it or you'll burn. That comes from Section 119. If you do not pay tithing, you are not worthy to live in Zion. If this church gets their kingdom back, and you are not paying tithing as an apostate or homeless and poor, you are unworthy to live in Utah. And you will either be punished by being put into an asylum called a treatment center. Because they don't call it a mental health center anymore, or a mental care center, or whatever crap they've been changing it to all these years. You're out. They'll lock you up, conversion therapy you, or you're out, if not murdered. You don't see the danger you're all in. And Bill Maher exposes this. And he doesn't fully understand the danger that Mormons are in because of it, but nonetheless. And so, Mormons, once you join the church, you must pay tithing. It is not a donation. Oakes makes that very clear, as he specifically uses wording to say it's a storehouse, and the Wardell guy or whatever says it's the Lord's treasury. What? We're not supposed to have a treasury. Storehouse for the poor. But nonetheless, that's how they do it. Altering words, altering definitions, and getting suckers and losers who believe them. And so, as 8-year-old kids, they now have to give up tithing to this church. And it's not just the slavery, it's also the sex slavery. Remember, Brigham Young. It's all inclusive. Being a Mormon makes you a slave and you're trafficked. And that's why they only want women to be prostituted. They don't want the Roman practice where both men and women were temple workers. And so Brigham Young made it so that you can't go to the temple unless you're paid up on tithing. For the rest of your life, you've got to be paid up on tithing. And thus, you can't get married in this church. You must choose only a Mormon girl. And she and you are not allowed to have sex until marriage. Nelson has changed that. You just have to say you're working towards marriage, that you're engaged, everybody knows it, and yeah, go to town, have fun. Nelson has made the change. You will not be punished by your bishop for having sex with someone you claim you're engaged to. And then I guess if things just don't work out, you just say, I guess the engagement's off. You go find another person and go through the whole process. And so those at BYU, who back in the 80s were heading down to Las Vegas, getting married at Elvis's Love Grill or whatever, Love Shack, and then having sex all weekend, and then coming back, getting the marriage annulled in Vegas before going back to BYU and then picking out another woman for the weekend to go down to Vegas with. You don't need to do that anymore. Nelson allows for free sex. You just have to make it known that everybody that you're engaged, you're working on marriage, you're still trying to figure out the dates so that you can then contact the temple. And so once that's all figured out, then you'll notify the bishop of what you're going through. He knows you're engaged, and so sex ensues. Perfectly fine and legitimate under Nelson. And yet, the second ex didn't want to believe it. We're still sealed, dear. You need to come back to church. It's the church of the devil, dear. I showed you our wedding pictures. I just cannot get a break. So yes, it's awful what this church is doing to you in regards to the sexual abuse. As Mormons are still hung up on the old ways to not understand the changes that they're pulling right out from under you. And they told you they were doing it, but you were on vacation during conference weekend. And so you don't want to watch my videos, or at least not believe them. So that's the big difference. Mormon women are not sex workers. This isn't a job, even though the IRS does allow them to file jointly. So yeah, as much as this is an uncomfortable subject for those who are guilty, it's what the church is doing. You need to rise up against this church. Say, stop this. We've had enough. Leave us alone. You are not a legitimate religion. You're not even a legitimate corporation. You're a fraud and you're committing crimes. And it's worse because of this. With the added crimes, a long list of them. So, alrighty. An hour. Wow. I thought this was going to be quick.